Ladies and gentlemen, Brandon Beane just pulled back 0 punches. I'm sure you've seen it on X. I'm sure you've seen it floating around Instagram and or TikTok. But Brandon Beane hopped on popular radio show WGR, and he called in and is clearly feeling some type of way. He's clearly frustrated about various criticisms of his draft class that was just finalized this previous weekend, specifically when it came into the wide receiver selection, or rather the lack thereof. I was shocked when I ultimately ended up seeing this. He started off by saying, I've been listening to this show for the past couple of minutes, and it reminds me of 2018 when you guys were bitching about Josh Allen over Josh Rosen. And now you guys are discussing the lack of a wide receiver and why we did not take a wide receiver earlier in said draft class. And man, he was mad. And let me tell you what, that probably had to be one of the biggest criticisms I think that we saw from anybody on the internet pertaining to this draft class. As many of you know, I ended up releasing my very controversial grades in said class. And I got to tell you what, me personally, I never really specifically thought that we needed to get a Matthew Golden in the first round, right? That like we needed to go out and get so-and-so in the second, for example. But I did want a player that could be added to said roster, right? A player that has a vertical element that could be brought to the game by itself. And also went on record saying that the Buffalo Bills, hands down, had to focus on defense. And that's what the Buffalo Bills did. Whether or not that I have my concerns that I think that we ultimately ended up passing on some players that I believe could have been day one contributors that have the possibility of being day one starters on said defense. And this front office ended up prioritizing project players that likely won't be able to hit their ceiling for about 2 to 3 years. That's an entire different conversation by itself. But I did kind of want to unpack my thoughts on what Brandon Beane said, like sort of, so with that overall conversation on WGR. So my thing is that he did remind everybody. He was just like, hey, you know what? This Buffalo Bills team, we ended up scoring 30 plus points 8 games in a row in 2024. We always end up going out and adding playmakers for Josh Allen. I think that he was referring to Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid, who I think several of us kind of have our question marks of whether or not that they were correct selections. Sounds like he's putting a lot of weight that they are going to take their third year and second year jump respectively. And that's fine because I think that both of those players will see significant improvements compared to 2024. But here's my thing, right? I think it's a very dangerous way of thinking when somebody ends up looking at previous year success and assuming that we are going to see the same thing the following season, because it's clear as day, right? That each and every single NFL organization's goal during every offseason is to get better and to address their perceived weaknesses. Yes, the Buffalo Bills ultimately ended up addressing their weakness this offseason, which was the defense. They should have prioritized it, and they did prioritize it. Just read it and weep. However, each and every single team in the NFL has that exact same mentality. So I've always found it dangerous to go out there and say, hey, we ended up dominating the league last year in offense with the wide receiving core that we had. Why fix what's not broken? We should just ignore it entirely and not expect other teams that were getting carved up by Buffalo last year not to address it in their own respective offseason. So that's always kind of a dangerous way of thinking if you were to ask me. Now, so do I think that anything's going to change with this offense? No. I mean, shit, we have the MVP quarterback on this roster right now. He could make you watching this video right now probably a 300-yard wide receiver with 0 football experience. That's just what Josh Allen brings to the table. But I still would have liked a couple of selections, right? Like, say, for example, rather than us going for, man, I'm just like not going to get into it. However, I do think a Dante Thornton would have been interesting. I think a Jay Horton would have been interesting later on than like rather than us go out and grab our third DB that was on said roster. But I'm still confident that Brandon Beane and this Buffalo Bills organization is more than likely going to address it and bring in a free agent after the fact. And it's not that I disagree with where his head was at, because defense was half of the reason why we have been sent home for the past couple of years. Like, we have zero depth in that department last year specifically. The second that Christian Benford ended up going down, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown was cooking the secondary, right? And we end up having an answer for that, Max Harrison. Love that, right? And then we end up going out and getting a TJ Sanders, who I think is more of a nod that they're getting sick of Ed Oliver, rather than somebody I think, oh yeah, like he's going to like automatically steal the majority of the snap share from Ed Oliver. Like, I see that as a limited impact in 2025, right? So that's my thoughts on the entire thing. I'm not mad at Beane for going out there and speaking his mind. I love when GMs do that, but we're just going to have to see who is correct. Like, that's the beauty of opinions, ladies and gentlemen. All football is, especially when it comes into the draft, especially when it comes into building specific NFL rosters. It's all just educated guesses, folks. It's all educated guesses. I don't care if you're Daniel Jeremiah from the NFL Network. I don't care if you're Brandon Beane, the GM of the Buffalo Bills. Hell, I don't care if you're Howie Roseman. Compared to the dude that you work with side by side, everybody has opinions, but all they are is educated guesses. And you don't know how that mentality is going to come into fruition until it is executed. And we actually see data, how these players end up fitting onto said field. So, hope Brandon Beane is right. I really hope that he was right, saying that he didn't need to prioritize the wide receiver position and we didn't need to have a speedy guy out on the outside. I hope he's right. That is all I have to say. But folks, welcome to another edition of the Don Mafia Report. I hope everybody is enjoying their day. I am about to switch over to my Q&A segment. Just so it's easy for everybody listening to the replay of said episode, please do me a favor. If you have a question, please begin your comment with a Q dash so I can easily decipher between questions and or statements, and also be able to filter out people that are arguing with each other amongst the chat. I'm fine with that, and you are more than welcome to do that, but just for the listening experience for anybody tuning in, that would be ideal. So please begin each and every single question with a Q dash, and let's get it going. We have King Jamie the Mad. Speak of that Chiefs fan. He took Jalen Royals from me. My heart is absolutely ripped out. Carl has come in and says, we currently have 9 players in the wide receiver room. You have Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, Josh Palmer, Keon Coleman. You have Caden Prather, KJ Hamler, and Virgil, and Terrell Shavers, and Laviska Shenault, not counting the undrafted free agents. So I look at that wide receiver room right now, and what I see is 4 for sure starters. And then really everybody else that I see on this, likely practice squad. I would love to be wrong, but that's just kind of where we're at, right? Like, last year, a lot of people said, well, look at where the Buffalo Bills were last year with their current wide receiver room. And I feel like a lot of people don't specifically acknowledge the fact that we saw one player go down. I wanted to say it was Khalil Shakir for a game or two. And like, we were regularly not having some of our wide receivers out. And that made us go out and trade for Amari Cooper, right? Because we realized, hey, there is an issue at lack of depth. Like, there are not players that we could actually count on. And you could even look at it from a defensive perspective. Like, what was our biggest issue last year? Is that like, yeah, like we had great starters in the secondary, or we had great starters on the defensive line, but God forbid, man, when someone went down, the drop off and the gap of production was so significant that we ended up shooting ourselves in the foot. I fear, hence why I wanted a Kyle Williams. I wanted the Jalen Royals. Hell, I wanted a Dante Thornton from Tennessee. Like, just give me somebody that can win vertically, like right on the outside. That's kind of where I'm at. But hey, listen, again, so opinions, right? It doesn't matter if you're an NFL GM. It doesn't matter if you're Dan Mitchell. It doesn't matter if you are somebody watching this show right now. Everybody has one, but they are all educated guesses. Each and every single one of us out there, when it comes into any single football take, is an educated guess, and the universe plays no favorites. So we will We'll see. We will see. Dan, just a heads up. We had this talk in the AFC's roundtable. You said that you would be a little concerned going into the season without an upgrade other than Palmer. Did you change your stance? It's not with the guys we have on the roster. I love it. 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 I kind of want one more starting caliber guy on this squad, though. One more starting caliber guy, because God forbid somebody has to miss a couple of games, especially say that our schedule ends up going up against like quality defenses. I want answers, right? Like, I don't need a bona fide first round wide receiver number 1 that's going to have over 1,000 yards. No, I was looking for a specific skill set player that I think is starting quality, right? I think we're still missing that vertical element. Maybe Curtis Samuel can shock the world, right? Because last year he was playing quite a bit with a turf toe. I hope that that is the case, but we shall see. Carl has come in. We thought that we were good on wide receiver last year and found out that we were lacking, and then went out and got Amari. Do we still need him? I think that might be one of our only options at this point, right? Like, he doesn't really necessarily fit the bill of what I think this Bills offense needs, as far as a speedster. But look, like, this offense will be fine as long as we stay relatively healthy. Like, we're probably going to pick up exactly where we left off. But God forbid that we see a couple of injuries. All right. And we have like Shavers out there, or like we have KJ Hamler out there. We have a 7th round pick and Caden Prather out there, who's still obviously going to need quite a bit of time to develop. But it is what it is. Like I said, folks, it is all educated guesses at this point. It's just how people frame them. It's like how people end up choosing sides. But the universe is the ultimate decision maker. We have Walter S. I thought the most interesting answer Beane gave was when he discussed his philosophy of building his team. He mentioned score points last upon mentioning things like defense and protecting the quarterback. So I think it's kind of all in there. Like, one of my favorite things that he said, and this is absolutely true, is that he ultimately said, this is not fantasy football, right? Like, this is not this is not your nephew building a team on Madden right now. Like, not everyone can get the football, so he had to prioritize elsewhere. And I get it, right? Like, he had to prioritize the defense. As many of us know, man, I love Max Harrison. Like, I think that he brings such a dynamic element to this defense. And I love all the depth that was so addressed right during the offseason. Like, we brought back Dane Jackson. We brought back Trey White. We have Max Harrison now. We have Christian Benford. We have a Cam Lewis replacement as well. So that one corner right in the 5th round. But, I mean, hey, listen, it's how it is. I think the draft was almost perfect, and so I would have liked a wide receiver, but I'm glad we did everything we could on the defensive line, and the reason we lost the last 3 years because of it. Yeah, dude, like, honestly, man, so I look at, like, where he went. I'm glad we got a CB2, and so I wish that we probably would. So I wish that we would have went in a different direction as far as the order of what defensive tackles we took. Love TJ Sanders, but I think that if we were to grab a 3-tech defensive tackle, I would have much preferred us to target somebody in the 4th round. So that way he had time to develop, and that would have been our project player, right? I would have rathered a guy that had a very limited time of development to be put on the 1-tech position, right? Because Deion Walker, he's a big body, but that guy needs some development, right? I thought that that was backwards. However, who knows? Like, maybe TJ Sanders goes out there and he beats out Ed Oliver and he's dominating snaps. Is what it is. Love Landon Jackson. Love Max Harrison. Some of the depth pieces we ended up getting right over there. Some solid special teams contributors, because Buffalo was very bad on special teams last year, so I totally get it. So I think my biggest gripe with this draft class was, number one, I feel that we mixed up our priorities of 3-tech and 1-tech. That's probably my thought. Say that we had to get a project player on the defensive line, I would have much preferred that we would have went with a 3-tech in the 4th or the 5th round. Somebody that could truly sit behind Ed Oliver and Dwayne Carter. And then I wish that we would have went with the 1-tech direction right within that 2nd round pick. But again, It might work out. Like I said, we all have opinions, and the universe has no favorites. Time always tells. Time is the only absolute in here, folks, that proves who knows what people are talking about. We have King Jamie the Mad. Will Shador Sanders be humble now since the entire league went all in on making his dad humble? Question: was it just me or who low-key enjoyed that? Man, you know what? We're going to have to see what happens there. I think that it's pretty clear that they just wanted to make an example out of Shador. I think Shador wins to the starting position right in training camp. I could be wrong about that, but who knows? So one would assume that he would probably gain some sort of learning experience after all of that. But we'll see. Manny has come in and said, Dan, and do you think Josh and Curtis can fix this failed chemistry we had in 2024? Dude, I hope so, right? Like, I think Curtis Samuel is interesting because when we sit back and we talk about, listen, we need somebody that can play X that has speed. On paper, that's Curtis Samuel. And Curtis Samuel was playing for, I'd say, vast majority of the season with a lingering turf toe injury. And yes, that's an excuse. However, I really hope that now he's had a full offseason to heal that. He can come out and he can shock the world because toward the end of the season, he was really starting to play that. I try to put myself right in the shoes of Brandon Beane, and I try to put myself right in their thought process of what was going through their mind where they ended up passing on Kyle Williams or passing on Jalen Royals, one of the two. Likely it has to do with that. They think that Curtis Samuel could potentially be that guy for us. I think that's the only thing that so makes sense to me right now. Statement: signing Elijah Moore today. Oh my God, we have podcast junkie SG. Would you prefer a wide receiver or DT1? As that is the only pick where the folks you mentioned were still available. So a one tech. All right, so I probably would have. So rather than Deion Walker, I probably would have went with like a Deontay Thornton. But then again, I liked Walker. But I wanted Buffalo to double dip at the one tech position and not at the three tech. And if we had to get a three tech defensive tackle, I wanted that to be swapped. So we went with a one tech and Alfred Collins in the second, and then we would have ended up sort of taking a project guy or something right in the fourth. So an ideal world for me, like, would have been an Alfred Collins right in the second, and then we would have ultimately ended up going with a Josh Farmer like later. Like that for me, like would have made sense. But again, we'll see how it plays out. Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Yeah. And as much as I love Landon Jackson too, like solid player, but I still think that he is going to take about a year to get to like his full ceiling. Would I have felt better? So with a Kyle Williams? Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And so I would have felt better with a Kyle Williams there. But like I said, hopefully it works. Hopefully it works out. We have YPN. It would be nice to have a starter wide receiver, but would you want to sign another vet receiver to help out our younger guys? I think that's the direction that we're probably going to go because, again, when you look at our overall depth chart, there are really only 4 guys that I have confidence in. And starting caliber players is what I am looking for. And by starting caliber, I am including the depth pieces, but I don't want us to have a heart attack, say, for example, that Shakir goes off with like a tight hamstring and he can't finish the fourth quarter and we're in like a tight game with the Cincinnati Bengals or something like that. I don't want damn I don't want damn Shavers rolling out there. I'm like, oh damn, we're cooked right now. You know what I mean? I would have liked another player that brought a different element right to this offense. That's just me because you look at this roster. And one thing I feel like everybody always forgets is that injuries do happen. And sometimes if like your defense is catching the injury bug, you need your offense to pick it up. And we typically did last year. But again, while the Buffalo Bills had a goal, okay, of getting better and addressing their weaknesses this offseason, so did all of our competition. So teams that allowed the Buffalo Bills to hang 30 points on them, you're damn sure. And you damn well believe that that was the biggest weakness that they wanted to address in 2025. So I'm not so much of a fan of So relying on the success of previous seasons where each and every single league year changes based off of personnel, coaching, what have you. Shout out to water. Shout out to water, man. This show is brought to you by water. 223 watching, only 45 likes. Pound that like button like a woodpecker in heat. Dwayne, man. Shout out to everybody in my chat. Shout out to everybody that mods my channel as well. Keeping the peace. And so as many of you can see, I'm in a hotel. I am on the road for some business for the rest of the week. So this is going to be the background for the remainder of the week. Hence why I have this little lavalier mic rather than my typical setup. But I could not stay away from all of my people. We have a lot of really good content coming this week. I'm going to be breaking down each and every single player that the Buffalo Bills did ultimately end up drafting, and several Q&A videos. So make sure you subscribe, and also make sure that you smash that like button for me. It's the easiest way that we can get done. How would you feel if we picked up Keenan Allen during this year, like last year with Amari? I'd probably pass on him. I would probably welcome an Amari Cooper reunion rather than a Keenan. Just because Keenan's more of a slot dude. I want somebody that excels a bit more on the X side of things. And even Amari Cooper, he's really not even like the sort of skill set wide receiver as into what I wanted. But we will see. And so I do believe that Walker will be solid at the one tech, only because I feel like he's going to need to double team more and half of the time with his size. Look at Tampa. They have 800 pounds between the guards and center, neither fast, but both huge players. So the thing is, so with Deion Walker, I really want him to start transitioning some of his strength in his lower body. Like, he's very top heavy, right? Like, that's where like the majority of his strength comes from. Hence why I think that it's going to take about a year or two right before he's wildly effective. Let's just hope that Daquan Jones has a hell of a season, right? Like, let's just hope that he has a hell of a season, and like we can only have Deion Walker out there a couple of times. Like, he's like a true one tech guy. So let's get this going. We have Darren has come in. So why do you think Sanders and Ed Oliver can't be on the field at the same time? I get he's not a one tech, but the point is to help take the double team pressure off of Ed Oliver. Sanders can do that. So I think that that really only makes sense on passing downs, right? Like, you still need a one tech. And I don't think that there's going to be as many scenarios as we're thinking that Ed Oliver and, of course, Sanders will be on the field at the exact same time. I think that's going to be a situational play. That's not going to be 100% of said snaps, right? So that's, yes, maybe I do see it being wildly effective, but I don't know. I don't know there. Let's see. And plus, like, when it comes into it, like, here's the deal. Buffalo has not had success getting to the quarterback in quite some time. And while we're happy because we see TJ Sanders lining up hypothetically right next to Ed Oliver is ideal, it's the exact same recipe that Buffalo has been following ever since Sean McDermott has been in the office or right as the head coach. And same thing with Brandon Beane, not having a big space eater in the middle of the defensive line. And while on paper that should work, right? Like, on paper that should work, having 2-3 techs, like, oh yeah, like that's going to increase our pressure. It hasn't, right? Like, it's the same archetype. We just have different players now. So that's why it never really made a lot of sense to me as into, hey, like, why don't we try like actually having a big body space eater? So that way we can see if maybe we can improve on our pass rush that way. I feel like it's us just continuously repeating the same action over and over and over again, but plugging and playing different names at the positions, but still the same archetype and expecting a different result. That was my overall thought process. But again, I hope it works. Like I said, I don't want anyone to think that I'm rooting against this team. I am not. If I am wrong and Buffalo goes out there with a TJ Sanders and an Ed Oliver and they dominate the league in pass rush, all of the advanced metrics, my God, I am going to be insufferable to other fan bases. Insufferable. I am going to be talking all this shit and praising Brandon Beane like no other. But that was kind of my thought right behind it. You think Cooper will come back and play for us, or is Williams or Allen more realistic for us to get? So I really don't think that we're seeing, right? So a lot of teams interested in Amari Cooper. So I could potentially see him making a reunion. Susu has come back. Sup, Dan? I just want to say you guys' defensive line looks scary with Sanders, Walker, Oliver, Rousseau, and Jackson this season, including the secondary. Susu, thank you so much. Solid draft for the New England Patriots as well. Question, is Isaiah Bond still a free agent? And if so, why haven't they signed him? Shaking my head. He has sexual assault allegations, I guess. And yeah, I don't know. I think that nobody signed him because of that. I'm going to double check and see if any team picked him up. Yeah, he's undrafted and he has not been picked up by any team. He has not been picked up by any team. We got Brent is coming. We need the old Dan. We need some strong opinions. This is boring Dan. No one likes for Dan. So what exactly is boring, right? Like, what exactly is boring about this? Like, here's the deal. One thing that I will always do on this channel is I will tell you guys how I feel. And I think since this is the first time that Buffalo kind of did something that confused me, some people are saying, oh, Dan, like you're turning. Like, no, not at all. Like when people did not like previous draft classes or did not have a lot of faith right in Buffalo, like I was one of the few people last year that said, guys, we are going to be fine since Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis left. We are going to be fine. And what happened? We were, right? Because I truly felt that way. I refuse to give takes that I think will appeal to the masses because that's not fair to you guys. Like, that's not fair to you. I will always be truthful and I will always tell you how I feel. So just because I'm going against the grain this one time in my career, it's what I'm going to do, baby. That's what I'm going to do. I will never apologize for saying my opinion, and I will never be scared of saying something that goes against the grain or goes against the masses. Hope I'm wrong, but that's just kind of how it is. Matthew, Dan, go Bills, but I think the Finns and G-Men had the best drafts. Opinion on that question. Also, favorite Bills pick this year and L. Sanders. Favorite one was Max Harrison and Landon Jackson. Solid selections for the team. I was very high on that. We have Reynolds. Hey, Dan, and did you listen to Beane go off on the WGR this morning? Oh, I sure did. Man. He was pulling no punches. I understand that we need practice squad guys, but in your opinion, what is stop practice squad guys like Shavers moving up to a starting role? So I think ability, right? So I think everybody has camp sweethearts, right? Like we can look back and think about some guys that absolutely won the hearts of Bills Mafia. Like a Christian Wade, for example, right? Everyone wanted Christian Wade, but unfortunately, he just never really played into it. That's kind of how it is. He could, and maybe he will be. You are welcome. What's up, Osiris? Hope all is well. I don't believe that the quarterback should be factored in when evaluating a wide receiver room. I get it. Allen is great and can get the most out of his guys, but that shouldn't be an excuse for an average wide receiver room. We have Jarrell. Hi, Dan, the man Mitchell. Broncos fan here. I really liked our draft picks for the Broncos. The Broncos absolutely cooked during the NFL draft. Congratulations to you. Hi, Dan. So the impression I got from the draft was a patch job to fill in the gaps in the selection of some players. Question. Do you think Solomon and Carter are still part of this team's plans? I would even think that a guy like Oliver could be traded before the end of his contract if this production is just average last year. What I know is that currently Buffalo has 12 D-line players. I expect Beane to cut or trade some of them. What do you think? So I think that's exactly what the TJ Sanders pick was. So what the TJ Sanders pick was, I think, and that's the only way that I was able to make any sense of it, was that they are planning on walking away from Ed Oliver eventually. So once the cap implications don't get nearly as bad, that's kind of what I'm thinking about that one. As far as Javon Solomon, I think that he is going to be on the watch list for a roster casualty, especially with all of the edge rushers we ended up bringing in. Him or AJ Epinesa. Solomon or AJ Epinesa, I think, are on the chopping block as a player that could potentially be moved on from. As far as Dwayne Carter, I think Dwayne Carter is safe. Bill 716. For all we know, Sanders and Walker are our 3 tech and 1 tech for the next 3 to 4 years. Hancock will take Lewis's spot behind Taryn or Hamlin's spot at safety and get a free safety or a slot corner spot secured. Yeah, man. Most definitely. I definitely see that Cam Lewis is not going to be on this roster. So I think Hancock is definitely taking over that position. Carvin has said, so how are you feeling about Elijah Moore because he is visiting Buffalo? I mean, look, I would be fine with it. Because, like I said, all I want is somebody that has proven that they can be effective in the NFL that has specific traits. And Elijah Moore is that guy. He is that guy. And I'm happy about it. Didn't we restructure Oliver this offseason? That would make moving off of Ed Oliver unlikely. So when it comes into contracts, right, I always like looking at what the guarantees are for said season. When you restructure somebody, very much like how the New Orleans Saints did to Derek Carr, was the guarantee all of said money that was guaranteed in the future into 1 year. So if they were to walk away from them later, that the cap implications would be far less significant. Haven't had a chance to pull up his contract on Spot Track. In fact, I could do it now. Let me see. Ed Oliver Spot Track. Let's see. Yeah. So this hotel Wi-Fi is less than ideal, chat. Okay. Yeah. So the Bills have a potential out on Ed Oliver after 2026. So say, for example, that we wanted to move on from him, then we could save close to $15 million in 2026 cap if he was a post-June 1st designation. So I think TJ Sanders was more of a let's replace Ed Oliver next offseason type move. That's kind of how I make sense of it. Manny, Danny, what's your opinion on the Shador prank? Fall, sorry. If it's slightly off topic, go Bills. It's something an immature kid would do. And so I feel like his dad. And so with Ulbrich, probably should have did a better job of like hiding some sensitive material. But boys will be boys when they're 21. I did a lot of stupid shit when I was 21 years old. So he's just a kid making mistakes, man. Dan, and do you think the Bills have any more moves for picking up any free agents? And if so, who? Well, I'll tell you what, Robert. According to a lot of people in this chat, it sounds like Elijah Moore is actually visiting the Buffalo Bills right now, and that would fit the type of wide receiver that we are looking for, a speedster that can play on the outside. That would be interesting. What do you think about getting a new jersey with the rivalries program with Nike, fourth and forever topic? I am excited about it, and I'm very excited to see what we come out with. My God, it's been about time. Just give me red helmets. Doesn't Harrison have SA in his background as well? Yes, but no charges were filed or no lawsuit was filed, right? It was just like a TikTok allegation, and it was ultimately deleted. And I guess a lot of people ultimately said that it was BS. So yes, I understood that he was a minor, but like since there was like no like charges at all, I guess Buffalo didn't think that it was that serious. And then maybe Buffalo thought Lynn, like he was just like, hey, yeah, we already have one guy with allegations. We can't bring in two guys with allegations. That's kind of, I guess, what they were thinking. Did we pick up any quality undrafted free agents? Nothing that's really impressed me, but wait until training camp. All right. Like, say, for example, one of the UDFAs absolutely goes off, then I will let you know, my friend. I think AJ is on the move. You can get more value back if they traded him. I broke my leg several years ago, and it never came back fully. I'm afraid Trey White and Matt Milano will have the same problem. Hope not, man. I'm really rooting for both of them. CB grades for Bills was B+, and they would have taken Oregon's Caldwell over TJ Sanders. Caldwell went to the Chargers in the third. So again, right, like Sanders is a good player. Like, he's a good player. And so I think that he has better size than Ed Oliver. I think that he could potentially be a better 3-tech than Ed Oliver. In my world, like what I wanted was 2 1-tech defensive tackles. And if we had to take a 3-tech, I wanted it to be in the 4th or the 5th round. But that's not what B wanted. And that's fine. And I respect that. And I hope it works out. We have TJB just got in here. What is happening, man? So we have Brandon Beane. He called in WGR. He was very upset with all the narratives surrounding some of these Seb players. And the Bills heavily used a 6-man on the line last year. Supposedly Jackson Hawes is a beast in blocking at tight end. Did he take over the 6-man job? What does that mean for Alec Anderson? No, I think that Jackson Hawes likely going to be a special teams guy. Solid blocker. He's going to be a special teams guy for sure. And then maybe during a couple of 12-man personnel plays, he could rotate with Dawson Knox as well, because him and Dawson Knox are very similar players as far as skill set. I don't see them walking away from Ed Oliver next year. I think the team has just learned that youth athleticism and potential are key to sustaining the team. And with Epinesa is gone, no upside. Fair enough. Fair enough. Dan, Can Man. Will the draft ever go to Buffalo? I would want that so bad. So, from what I understand, we had a couple of high ranking personnel from the organization go to Green Bay to sort of look and observe of how they did it. I think Buffalo is trying to get it done in 2028 or 2029. That would be cool. You would see me there. Damn. And so I know Moore is visiting the Bills, but do you have any wide receiver free agent in mind that you would like? So as long as the guy can run a 4-3, 4-4, so can line up on the outside and has experience of succeeding in the NFL, even on a micro level, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. Draft was good up until tight end. Buff comes in. He's not happy with that pick. Statement. I see Alec Anderson taking over for Edwards after this year. We don't re-sign him, re-sign McGovern and Torrance. We need to. But all right, folks. That's going to have to do it for another edition of the Don Mafia Report. I have a meeting on to, but I will be live a little later this afternoon to unpack who is truly a starting caliber player on this roster. Love each and every single one of you. If you are listening on Spotify and or Apple Podcasts, please do me a favor. If you are enjoying it, please leave a rating and review and follow me over there. Folks, listening or watching me live right now, if you could leave a review for me on Spotify and or Apple Podcasts, link is in bio. That would be wildly helpful. I look forward to unpacking quite a bit more with you later this afternoon. Have a wonderful, wonderful Monday morning, and we'll chop it up a bit later. See you soon. Bye.